this is my definition of faith too, and I'll just give it that. Like everyone's got faith, right? Everyone's got faith. Faith is trust across time for the establishing of the good. So it's
Wow.
trust across time for the establishment of the good.
Mm,
So whatever the good is determined, whatever you've determined the good, you're trusting in something to get you there, not just for today, but you're trusting in it long term. And it's meant to take the good and establish it in you.
mm,
So whatever the good, so we talk about the financial expert. The good for him is making as much money as he can within this amount of time. He trusts in the system of sales. He trusts in the economy. He trusts in political parties, and as he trusts in them, he interacts with them in a specific way. Maybe he lobbies for something. Maybe they bribe someone. Whatever it is. But for him, the good is that money. It's making that money. It's being at the top, and whatever he's trusting in, he believes it's going to get him there.
mm.
And so same thing you can say again with Shia LaBeouf. Like the good for him is to be a part of humanity in this very social way.
Mm,
And so perhaps he trusts in alcohol in order to get him there,
mm.
and he trusts a little bit too much. And we're all looking for goods, and we're all looking for ways to get to those goods.
Yeah.
It's just that not all goods are created equal.
Yeah. I love
So it's
that.
like
Yeah.
not all goods are equal, and so your good determines a whole lot of things. But if your
Mm.
good is making money, if your good is eternal salvation, that's a higher good than making money.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's a hierarchy.
And yeah, and that needs to be properly oriented. That's really, really good. And I love what you said there too about the importance of faith in this, because I think that this really ties in very strongly to the modern paradigm and sort of the dilemma that we find ourselves in, which I think it said something to the effect of that faith is kind of what holds us to the course, for the long term. It's like we orient ourselves towards a guiding star, a guiding principle. There's something that we're going towards, and we have that kind of wind in the sails, and we're traveling in that sort of direction, but that there's a longevity there, that there needs to be a kind of a long-term sort of focus in that direction in order to make it there. Like you said, like about the illustration of the table getting longer, right? It's like, okay, we got a little bit further to go to get to the place of optimal involvement and participation in whatever that thing is. And it seems that we are experiencing one of the aspects and one of the manifestations of what we're experiencing as a culture today, and on an individual level for many people, is a difficulty with two things. One is a difficulty with attention, right? Like we seem to be having a very hard time focusing our attention on a single guiding principle, right? Like we're having a very hard time, grabbing onto something and being like, okay, let's go for that, right? This idea of commitment, this idea of focus, this idea of participation in something and belonging in something. We seem to be oftentimes, all too often in our culture today, I think, in a constant state of, we talked about this process of being made and unmade over and over again. It's almost like we're constantly doing that all of the time. And it just feels like, every time that you're scrolling on your phone, right, and your feed is constantly, hitting you, it's presenting you with all these different things. It's like you're scrolling through a battlefield of competing spirits. It's like there's all these little gods, you could say, right? There's all these little things that are constantly like, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And we have a very hard time like picking one and staying with it. And there's something about the sort of digital world that we live in that allows for the continual conversation and the sort of the arena of many different voices that seems to be creating this sort of state of mind where we're constantly being pulled in lots of different directions, and we have a hard time like attending to one thing for the long haul. Like we can give ourselves attention, but for the long haul, it seems to be really hard for us to actually invest ourselves. So there's an attention sort of deficit in our culture today. And the other thing that seems to be happening, which I think is connected to this and with what you were saying, which is that we're also experiencing a real famine of faith, which is this sense of we don't know what to believe. There's a real hunger for something real, right? There's a deep hunger for something real and for something true and to something that you can grab onto that's actually solid, that you can actually believe in. And what we're seeing by and large is kind of like almost a radical skepticism about everything, about the nature of reality. And I think that both of these things kind of tie into the sort of postmodernist paradigm, which is that it's like, well, there are many, many stories, there are many, many different voices, there are many different things that are speaking, and we need to pay attention to all of them. And so it's very hard to then pick one and just focus on that, because that to do that would be to exclude all of the other voices. And it's like, well, I can't do that. I gotta include everything. I gotta have all the voices all the time. But that's what pulls us into this state of basically that is essentially identical with the state that we would refer to as anxiety, which is just having all of these different things and I can't focus on one of them. Or we talk about some of the mental health crises that we seem to be seeing today with ADHD and this kind of difficulty with applying attention. And then the other thing with that too is that that's called into question by the postmodernist sort of way of seeing the world, is that it's like, well, not only do I need to be paying attention to all of these different voices, but I should never be too certain that any one of them is actually true. And so we see this kind of constant doubt. Like there's always this like, well, I'm going to go with this for a little bit, but I don't want to go too far because it might not actually be true. Like maybe I should go and listen to this other thing. And so, yeah, I don't know if maybe you could speak to something about that as far as the difficulty with faith and also in the relationship between faith and also attention.
100%. So attention's everything. Or at the very least, your attention reveals everything that has to do with you and knowing who you are. So the big terms, right? So the combinatorial explosiveness, which is a big cog science term I heard from John Vervaeke, who's also like big into that.
Yeah.
It's the everything everywhere all at once exploding all the time. So when you said, there's so much there's so much to focus on. Yeah, there's infinite amount of things to focus on at any one given moment. And so our beings, the way they're designed is that you can't clearly see everything all at once, all the time, despite what that movie says. the movie being like, I think that's why there's such a desire to know about the multiverse or believe there's a multiverse, is because it somehow puts into order all the crazy things. Like it's like a system that you can throw on the universe and it accounts for all the variation. That's what the attempt for the multiverse is, but it ultimately breaks down because it's far too lofty a goal to account for all the universe. So what do we do as human beings? We only see what's relevant to us. It's called relevance realization. So you only see what's relevant to you, depending on whatever it is you value and find salient, important, right? So your salience hierarchy. So you have a hierarchy based upon however you live, nature, nurture, all the millions of factors that got you to this point. So you have your hierarchy of what's important, which informs what you see in the sea of everything. I think our age right now, the spirits of our age have influenced us to believe that what we find salient is this disconnected, multifaceted amount of things all at once.
Yeah.
So postmodernity, like you said, postmodernity has raised us to have our hands in a lot of different pies all at once. Our hands are in everything. And what that's created in us, and our phones and technology has aided in developing this in us, is to have like TikTok brain, quick. Because how can you account, like if you value everything, or you have a value structure, what's important, everything, then now you find everything relevant. And that used to be called like a renaissance man, but which I very much value that in human beings. I value people being interested and good at a lot of different things. But there's something more frantic about our age.